There have been some pretty obvious struggles for our young guys in the last few games, but if you dig deep, there's real progress taking place. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel giving you a way to turn your energy into bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to play your game. It is a Monday. We always look at Trends Monday before we're done. We'll look at the tank standings as well. Today's show, we're really looking at Game 60. We always said we'd look at 10-game increments. Game 60 of our young guys. I think there's been some really obvious blatant struggles, some real concerns, but if you dig deep on all of them, you can see some real progress taking place for Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Cody Williams, and Bryce Sensabaugh, and that's where we're going to start on today's show. Let's start with Isaiah Collier. The struggles at times feel real. We could dig into the numbers a little bit on this, on how the offense is performing with and without him on the floor, things of that nature. But we're also seeing his strengths really show up. And let me back up 1 second, because we're going to do something that's kind of a little tricky here. And it's going to take a little bit of a dance. So the struggles I'm talking about are when you look at these guys collectively right now and you watch them play without Lauri and without Jaren Jackson, without Jusuf Nurkic, and without Keyonte for some of it. And they just, it's just too much, right? And we've talked about this a lot, that this is this incredible 22-game stretch left where the evaluation for Collier, Filipowski, Cody Williams, Brice Sensabaugh from Austin Ainge and the front office has to be whether or not they're good enough to be part of a playoff rotation next year. The Jazz goals next year are being the playoffs. And are these guys good enough to assist you to get to the playoffs and then be good enough to be in a playoff rotation? And maybe a little bit is, will they be April 15th of next year? So, and honestly, if you're watching collectively right now, I think your assessment in the last few games very easily could be no. Like, oh no. There's a chance that none of these four guys are actually ready to be in that role if you've been watching. They're doing some things well, but there's been some real moments where you're like, New Orleans dropped off Isaiah really, really far. He had to take one shot, started the night 2 of 8 last night. There were the other night when it mattered, and it's pretty glaring, and you're like, uh-oh. And there have been some moments with Kyle that you're like, uh-oh. And Cody's obviously got strengths and weaknesses, and the dunks are awesome and flying. And Bryce can't seem to get rolling in the first half of the last few games where he gets going in the second half. So let's just be honest about it. There's moments right now where if you're watching this with an analysis and a kind of an eye of like, are they a part of it? You're like, oh, no. But so that's the collective. When you dive into them individually right now, I think you can really find some pieces of the puzzle that feel better than that. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And so let's do that. So first, let's start with Isaiah Collier. And Isaiah Collier's had this incredibly increased role. And I broke the season into December 27th before and after because that's the 30-game mark. And so instead of looking at 10s, I'm looking at 30s here. So Isaiah Collier ran 355 picks in the first 30 games of the year, and he's run 612 since. So he's just about doubled the amount. Now, what's interesting is picks per 100 possessions is not, just he's playing more. And he's gotten better. He has gotten better. He has gone, and this is not an easy stat to be judged on, but I think this is an important stat for Isaiah Collier to be judged on, and here's why. Because the question, there's never going to be a question about his ability to play in the open floor with speed and with pace. The question on Isaiah Collier is going to be whether or not you can play enough. You just can't have enough possessions like that, frankly. And so the question on Isaiah Collier is going to be whether or not you're able to play in the half court effectively enough without being a shooter to be able to impact things. So watch these numbers, listen to these numbers closely, but it's pretty interesting. So last year, Isaiah Collier ran 1,100 pick and rolls. And his points per pick and roll were 0.87. In the first 30 games this year, it was 0.95. And in the last 30 games, it's 0.97. That is a tremendous growth. He's literally 1.1 points better per pick and roll than he was a year ago in the last 30 games. And if you start to look at that number and think it's 35 picks per 100 possessions is what he runs, like over, if he played 100 possessions, he'd be suddenly 3 points better. That's dramatic. They also have something called points per direct. So this is when it's just ending with him. And he's gone from 0.94 to 1.06 this year alone. And last year he was 0.90. So on the points per direct, and I can give you all, which means that the play points per chances, they run the pick and roll and the end of the play comes out and it can be anything, right? But the initiating action was a pick and roll. On the points per direct, it's like, okay, on the pick and roll that he initiates, it finishes almost immediately. Is at least the way I understand the glossary on this. And so the points per direct last year was 0.89. I think it was probably, of most guards in the NBA, one of the worst in the entire league. This year, in the last 30 games, he's gone from let's call it 0.9 to 1.06. It's pretty tremendous. That's a real sign of like beginning to understand, play the pick and roll, know how to do things, play off the 2 feet, all the things Will Hardy's talked about from Isaiah Collier. That's a major step in the right direction for Isaiah Collier. All right, the pull-up 3 off the bounce is just not a part of his game. Last year, though, he was at 21%. This year, he's at 32%. Okay, massive jump. His catch and shoot game last year was 29%. This year's right around 25, 26%. Not super. Those are, but above the break 3-point shooting, last year was 22%. This year's 27%. Okay, not a sustainable number, but a better number. Few other notes on Isaiah, but this is an example where I think if you dig into it a little bit, you start to see on each of these guys some real major progress. And I think that's an important one. Okay, one of the things, though, that's a little disconcerting, and again, this is a little noisy because of who he plays with. His plus minus is the worst of any player on the team. Okay? So, that's a real concern. Offensively, we're 5 points per 100% points less good when he's on the floor. And defensively, we're 7 points worse when he's on the floor. And other than Keyonte, it's the worst of anyone on the floor. Okay. Some of these pick and roll numbers are awfully hard to look into, both because we don't really have a rolling big this year, and particularly though Nurkic sets good picks for the offense, but we also don't have a defensive big. So some of this is a little unnerving. But I do, if we're going to give him the praise, here's what's probably going to dictate whether Isaiah Collier is a rotation player next year. Last year on pick and roll defense, now again, with Walker, is a lot easier to play pick and roll defense than it is without him. But last year on pick and roll defense, Isaiah Collier was 1.01. And this year he's 1.15. That is a tremendous jump. I believe, I could check this, he may be the worst pick. At one point this year, he was the worst pick and roll defender in the NBA. I will check this in a minute. That's where he's got to get better. The defensive lapses are probably would be the item at this point that prevents Isaiah Collier from playing the rotation minutes that all this other progress is going to lead him into. If you look at the top 100 guards, I'm doing it right now, we're doing this together, who have guarded the pick and roll this year. Somehow Donovan Mitchell barely gets into that. The Osur Thompson, Josh Okogie, Tyrese Maxey, Dylan Harper, AJ Mitchell are the best. That's kind of what you'd expect. So it passes. And Isaiah Collier is the worst pick and roll guard defensively in the NBA by a fairly large margin. He's at 1.14. CJ McCollum's at 1.09. Jeremiah Fears is 1.09. Walt Clayton's at 1.06. Trey Jones is at 1.06. Davion Mitchell, 1.04. Ben Shepherd, 1.4. Okay. The big other things involved there, probably not totally fair, but just worth noting. In the midst of the progress, there's still this thing that if you're going to be this non-outside shooting guard, pace-setting guard, you have to be great defensively too. But huge progress. Huge progress. The other one who's making huge progress is another second-year player in Kyle Filipowski, and we'll touch on that next on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Chevy, located over in Woods Cross, also in Logan, by the way, is Murdoch Chevy. And the Chevy truck is Americana through and through. The Murdochs are Utah through and through. So it's a perfect combination for you. And the deals over there right now are terrific. You can get in gear with the 2025 Chevy Colorado at 3.9% for 60 months, plus $2,000 in cash allowances. On the Chevy Crew Cab Silverado 1500 with Turbo Max, you can get back a total value of $73.50 on various cash allowances, engine credits, bonuses, Chevy loyalty program, and 1.9% APR for well-qualified buyers. So great deals going on right now at Murdoch Chevy. If you're in the market for a car right now and you're looking at a Chevy, email me at dlock09@gmail.com and let's get you the Locked On VIP treatment that you deserve over at Murdoch Hyundai. Murdoch Hyundai giving you the Americana that is the Chevy truck, as well as the Murdochs. No regrets. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they care. They care and how much they carry in our lives, at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles that step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. So think about whether it's mom, sister, coworker, whatever it is, and think about what they do for everyone involved, the roles they play, the expectations they carry, the pressure that they don't always talk about. Therapy can help with all that, creating balance, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting overall well-being. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served worldwide, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, and it works for you. Fill out a short questionnaire. Get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not right, you can switch at any time. The emotional well-being of all around us matters, yours and those around you. So find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up for get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Everydayers, you're the best. Glad to have you out there. We now have an Everydayer Club for you. If you want to be part of our growing Discord channel, hopefully going to build the best, smartest Jazz community to interact with, that's part of our exclusive Everydayer program. Plus, you get ad-free Locked On Jazz and ad-free Locked On Sports Today. That's $5 a month. With a promo code JJJ, you can get a month off, or you can buy it annually. We also have the All Access Club. If you really want to be all-in Jazz fan, get all the news, get all the breakdowns, get all the exclusive content, get all the extra stuff. That's the All Access. You get one-on-one texting with me. Send me a right back and forth. It'd be amazing during the draft, during transactions, during all that kind of stuff. Leaf Tuline's bonus content for you on the feed as well. Draft breakdowns, getting you ready for the draft. You also get 15% off in the merch store and access to the merch store, which nobody else gets. You also get those Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports, Locked On Jazz, ad-free, and part of the Discord channel. All there for you as well. Plus a daily newsletter into your inbox. It's all for the All Access Club. Go to lockedonjazz.supercast.com. That's lockedonjazz.supercast.com to make sure that you become part of the Everydayer Club. That's lockedonjazz.supercast.com. All right, let's talk Kyle Filipowski. I'm going to start with Kyle Filipowski where I ended with Brice Sensabaugh, but in a positive. So Kyle Filipowski is becoming a much better defensive player. The key that I have said time and time again for Kyle Filipowski is going to be how he handles being an isolation defender. In other words, when a team switches defense, when the Jazz, so Kyle's going to have to play defense right now, or center defensively right now, which is not really what he does. So what we're really looking for is when it's time for Kyle Filipowski to get to play probably his natural position, which is the power forward position, and be able to shoot the ball a little bit. He's shooting it great right now till the other night, but generally he's still shooting it great. And when Kyle Filipowski has to switch out on the defender, how does he do? So last year, Kyle Filipowski on isolation defensive was a 1.09. Okay? And that was generally, if I run the numbers for you again, it was pretty much, I think, the worst isolation defender in the NBA last year. Right awfully close to it. If you judged, if we found Kyle last year defended 154 isolations, which is actually pretty high, unless it was 34th highest in the NBA, and we get the 60 guys in the league, or maybe even the 90 guys in the league last year who guarded at least, we'll go 100 guys in the league just to stretch it out, who guarded 120 isolations or more last year. And the worst in the league was actually Spencer Jones. Kyle was actually not the worst in the league. Kyle was a little better than that at 1.09. He actually, where is Kyle? Anyway, I'll find it for you, but it's interesting. I'm not sure why he's not showing up here. And so I did something wrong with that search and somehow eliminated him. But that's all right. Because I'm doing this year. That's why. So this is exactly what I want to talk to you about. That's why Kyle didn't show up. So last year, Kyle Filipowski, isolation defensive player. RJ Barrett was the worst in the NBA, and Kyle was not one of the better ones. He and Lauri were in the 23rd percentile of guys. Okay, at 1.08. There were guys worse. RJ Barrett, Gary Trent, Obi Toppin, things like that. Lauri was actually worse. So let's go to this year. Isolation defender being switched. In the first 30 games of the year, Kyle gets switched 78 times, and his defensive rating is right back where it was, 1.08. In the last 30 games, Kyle Filipowski switched defensively has been so much better. 0.85. Really stunning. Really, really stunning. So literally 78 pick and rolls in the first half of the season, and Kyle Filipowski's guarding it at 1.08, which was the same kind of number he was, isolations, which was the same number he was the year before. 1.08 put him, 68th out of 100, or actually 77th out of 100. Bad math. So not good. Kyle Filipowski instead has absolutely swung this around the other way. In the first 30 games of the year this year, just got torched. 1.08 again. But in the exact same amount of picks, in the last 30 games, his isolation defense is 0.85. This is the key to whether Kyle Filipowski plays in the NBA. This is the equivalent, frankly, of Isaiah Collier suddenly shooting 38% from three. This is tremendous. Now, all of his other skills that are great, the fact that his three-point shooting over the last 16 games, I think, is around 40%. The fact that Kyle Filipowski's catch-and-shoot game going into last night, where he went 0 for 5, was 20 of his last 46 on catch-and-shoot. Fine, if he missed all 5 of those were catch-and-shoots, then he's 20 of his last 50. That's 40%. The fact that Kyle's above the break three-point shooting's at 35%, which is now you can play your 4 or 5 stretched out to is a league average, if not better. The fact that his corner three shooting, which last year was 38%, this year's 34%, probably is going to be above our league average. He's turning the ball over a little bit too much. There's a bunch of little things he'll learn. But the idea that Kyle Filipowski's defense might actually be not only acceptable, but fairly good is amazing. 0.85 points per pick for isolation for Kyle Filipowski. Now, are the Jazz protecting him better? There's a bunch of noise inside those numbers, but you can see it with your eyeball on this one. That he is learning, getting better, not getting spun like a top, not getting his feet tangled up nearly as much. His footwork was a huge problem early in the year defensively, and he's able to make plays. It's really great. It's for that reason, which I'll probably do tomorrow, the ranking after 60. He's on top of the list right now. Of the 4 young guys that we have left, who's got a chance to be part of the rotation for the Jazz as an NBA player next time they make the playoffs, which has been the question all year long. We've been kind of doing it every 10 or 20 games. Kyle Filipowski, I think, will be top of my list because of this number solely. His pick and roll defense is not as dramatically better. And honestly, it's not what he does well at all, frankly. So, like, screen defender Kyle Filipowski is that's just a bad situation for us to be in. So I'm not really one who wants to judge him a lot on that. In the sense that, again, but in 277 picks to start the year and 350 now without Nurk, he's at the exact same rate. He's at a 1.17, which is not great. But Nurk, frankly, was the worst pick and roll big defensively in the NBA this year at 1.04. So Kyle's been better than that. And if you actually look at our defensive numbers, Kyle as the center has been, of Kevin Love, this is not like, there's some bad jokes I could make here. Of Kevin Love, Kyle Filipowski, and Yusuf Nurkic, like, Kyle's the best. Our defense has been best when he's in at center, which, frankly, okay, that's right. Like, I don't want to get too far on that one. Like, it's praise to being better than that, but the point is there. And this is a sign of growth. And this is a sign of Kyle figuring out his biggest weaknesses and really getting a great deal better at it, which is super and is incredibly important for the Jazz. And the point of this, a little bit on the pick and roll defense, is like, it's better. This is not where we expected, but he was 1.03 a year ago. He's 1.017 this year for the whole year. Okay. It's not great, but it's also not what you want. It's not where you want him defensively. But if he can start to switch it and play in the isolation, then maybe you can start playing 1 through 5 switching defense with him. And then he can play some 5 minutes. And if he can switch it, then you can play some 4 minutes at 1.4 with him at the 1 and the 4. And by the way, I think if this is still true, our offense this year, when he's the picking big, is better than any other big on the roster. It's really second-year player getting a lot better. Pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at Cody and Bryce quickly. We may not get entirely to Trends Monday today. There's a lot here. Next, as we continue on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. FanDuel wants you to get into the action with all sorts of college basketball fun, college basketball nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your need. And you can mix spreads, totals, player props to match how you can see the slate playing out. And then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump the potential payoff. Look at the odds and see where the boost matters most. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's show is also brought to you by Indeed. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Let Indeed's sponsored jobs help you out. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill out sitting open when the pressure's on. You need right hire. That's the right for sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles upon your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In a minute, we'll be talking about this. Indeed will hire 27 people on their Indeed sponsored jobs. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates with all the boxes, checking all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, the job is yours with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves in the Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard it on the podcast. But more importantly, go to Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply so that you can hire the right person. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We'll do Trends Monday on Tuesday, which is weird, but we will. Because I want to get to Cody and Bryce. So Cody's, some extent, is obvious. The drive into the basket, the suddenly finishing around the rim, the movement of where his plays are offensively. Some of, just shooting from 53% at the rim last year to 67% this year. Short mid-range game from 37 to 44%. Absolutely fabulous. Great growth. Shooting frequency. He shot 18% of his shots at the rim last year. He's at 44% this year. He's now high level at that. He's moved himself from taking 49% of his shots as threes to 27%. Just moved his entire shot chart to match what he's doing better. Some of the defensive stuff, which is not as good, frankly, as when we look at him, what we expect to see, if I'm being totally honest, when I looked it up, because I think he's always guarding the best defensive player. And so his numbers don't look as good as they would otherwise. But in the first 30 games of the season, Cody guarded 106 pick and rolls. In the last 30 games of the season, Cody has guarded 288. So talk about a massive jump from 94 to 288. In the first 94 of the season, Cody was really good at 0.94. Since then, it's dropped to 1.00. So that's not heading in the right direction, but it also that's the magnitude of who he's guarding and what's going on there. I think you have to be a little careful just kind of analyzing that from a defensive standpoint. Isolation defending, which he doesn't do a lot because they're usually doing things, but 29 times in the first 30 games of the year, he was 0.96. Since then, he's getting torched at 1.40. I don't know why that is. That's an alarming number at 1.40. I don't know what's happened there in the last stretch with Cody defensively. Again, I would guess it's a lot more reps, right? It's 29 to 72, and it's against the best guys in the NBA. And so that's jumping out there a little bit. That's my guess, but that's not totally, the offensive stuff trending better. Some of that's not trending as well, but I think there's got to be a little depth to understanding on that. Let's switch it over to Bryce, who Bryce is really interesting. Bryce is the one who I probably have the hardest time understanding what's going to happen when he plays with better players. Because right now we talk about Bryce as he's an elite shooter all the time, and he's shooting 33% on catch and shoots. There's actually nothing elite about it, which is a little surprising to me. Now, here's some really good news. On the pull-up three, he's suddenly finding something. He's 17 of his last 40 on the off-the-bounce three. That's less guys playing, him playing with the ball in his hands more, them going under occasionally, him finding that. That's vital. That's a huge step. Talk about the growth, the hidden growth in here. That's a big, big number for Brice Sensabaugh, 17 of his last 40. The other one that's interesting with Bryce is that his corner three shooting is now at 44% of the year. That's elite. So does he suddenly kind of those Cody Williams shots go to Brice Sensabaugh? His above the break three-point shooting is only at 32%. That is not elite. And so that's kind of an interesting little mix here for Bryce on the offensive end. Now, we also know Bryce has become really a good just get scorer, get buckets, make plays in the mid-range, do some, use his power in his body. Will said he'd like a little less one-on-one stuff. Get it. Bryce, though, talk about progress. Brice is now shooting, instead of 12% of his shots at the rim, Brice is now shooting 18% of shots at the rim. It's low, still in the 26th percentile for a wing player in the NBA, but it's a step in the right direction. He's moved from taking 60% of his shots as threes to 50% of his shots from threes. So you're seeing these are the signs of growth. His rim finishing has gone from 62% to 70%. His mid-range game has gone from 46 to 49%. So this is super inside of like actually a pretty significant three-point shooting slump from 43 to 34. A lot of the other indicators on Brice Sensabaugh offensively are pretty good. Brice's defensive numbers are not. And this is going to be, again, Will Hardy said it very, very well. I need your weaknesses to be good enough that your strengths can shine. So Brice in the first 30 games of the year guarded 94 pick and rolls. He allowed 1.13, which is very high. And in the second half of the season, he's guarded 56 pick and rolls, and he's brought that 1.13 down to a 1.02. That's better. Excuse me. Take it back. I thought that was wrong. As I was saying it, it didn't seem right. Let me get it for you right. So Brice has taken 94 pick and rolls in the first half of the season at 1.13. He's brought it down. He still has brought it down to 1.04. So that's good. Like that's from 1.14 to 1.04 matters. From 94 to 167. That's great. That's the kind of progress that you need to see. And that's him getting better. And that's where, when we dig into these second tier numbers on all of our guys right now, they're getting a little better. Isolation defense, Brice only guarded 20 isolations in the first half of the season. It was ugly at 1.45. Last stretch, 56 games, 1.02. Way better. So what's really interesting here is Kyle Filipowski and Brice Sensabaugh, who both are going to have to be able to show that they can defend well enough to be NBA players, are beginning to show signs of that in this extended minutes without really any defensive structure around them at all. So some great signs in the midst of, like, to me, what's really open, blatant struggles and looks like, oh, dear gosh, you start digging in a little bit, you can find some really positive things on our young guys. That's today's edition of Locked On Jazz. We'll give you a Trends Monday tomorrow and get that for you. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you want to follow me on socials, it's DLock09. That's DLock09 at gmail.com. Also, excuse me, you can email me if you want to. That's just DLock09 at all my socials. And if you want to join us on the Everydayer Club, we'd love to have you. Go to lockedonjazz.supercast.com. That's lockedonjazz.supercast.com. Now we send you the first ever national 24/7 NBA channel on YouTube, Locked On NBA. And on audio, check out Game Night, every game, every night, and the Big 3 and 30.